welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be reviewing Arrtx acrylic markers and this watercolor sketchbook, which actually I didn't get a chance to try out this video. So I don't actually have a lot of experience with acrylic markers. I've used them once before for a sketchbook cover and oh my god, that was so horrid. It was literally the hardest thing I've ever done, and I said to myself back then that I'm never going to try them again, but here we are. Yeah, I'm just really bad at saying no to people, so I couldn't resist, and who doesn't like getting new art supplies? To be honest, I wasn't really sure what to do with this sheet, but I think it's stickers that you have to put on each marker, which of course I was not going to waste my time and do that when I could see all the colours anyways. And I actually didn't mind this packaging because I can see all of the different colours and I can choose them really easily, but I don't think they're meant to be stored this way. I've read somewhere that you should store them horizontally, and that's the best way to prevent them from drying out. So I had this sketch from before. To be honest, I really did not know what I was doing going into this. I was really scared actually, because I do not have a good relationship with acrylic markers. I don't understand how people can actually make good paintings with them, and you can definitely see me struggling. At this point in the painting, I honestly just wanted to rip it up and never look at it again. I just kept adding more and more colours to try and save it. When I started adding this bluey grey tinge, actually that's when I had a little bit more faith in the colours. And actually when I was trying this, the colours were coming out quite translucent. It wasn't as opaque as some other markers that I've tried before. I've only tried once before, which was shuttle art markers, and I used them on a black card like thing because obviously I did it in my sketchbook cover, and I didn't really have a problem with them being too transparent. They were a little bit, but I think that's because of the background more than the actual markers themselves. Whereas these ones, some of them were really opaque, but most of them were quite translucent. But I didn't mind that because it was sort of easier to layer on different colours, if that makes sense, which is something that I was looking for last time in the acrylic markers. Another thing that I found was that the darks were really limited. Like, I had no colours to use for the shadows, but this time I think the dark colours did come out quite dark. But again, I think with the shuttle art markers, because I was trying them on such a dark surface, I couldn't really tell if it was the markers or if it was the surface. I definitely should have tried them on paper as well, but after that experience I was like, I'm never touching acrylic markers again. But yeah, here we are. At this point I was thinking, you know what, this is actually doable. Like, I could look at this painting and not cry about it. But the colours that I was putting down at this point, the lighter colours, you can see that they were going on quite translucent. I had to put on quite a few layers before it was actually making a difference. So this is probably like the third layer of light colour that I was adding on top. Also with the shadows, you probably noticed that I'm using a brown when it's not autumn leaves, it's actually a cherry blossom. But the reason for that is because though they do have a really big colour range, this is a 90 set that I got, some of the shadow colours were still very limited. They have amazing highlight colours, like so many different tones, so many different shades of like every colour, which is amazing. But yeah, the shadows again are lacking, so I had to sort of make the colours myself, if that makes sense. And here I was just adding in extra cherry blossom to cover up some of the background, because honestly I did not know what I was doing with the background. I was fluking it so hard, but I think it looks fine being quite simple because it draws more attention to the foreground, which is a lot more detailed in this case. And I was so thankful to make it to the bridge, because I think at this point the painting actually started coming together and I was not really upset about it. And I think the bridge actually did tie it together quite a lot. Because it really broke down the top half of the painting to the bottom half of the painting, and yeah, it just gives your eye something to focus on apart from the sky, which I don't know why the sky is always so hard to do, especially with markers, because they're quite blocky, and sky has quite like a persistent gradient, which it was really hard to achieve in this case, but I think because your eyes draw attention somewhere else, it's not that noticeable. But with all of the objects, I am doing the same thing where I add a darkish layer, so like a mid-tone but on the darker side, and then I go in with the highlights and then I deepen the shadows at the end. That is universal in everything that I do, even in my gouache paintings. I don't know if you guys watched the other tutorial video that I put up, but it's the same thing, and it works the best for me, I think, because that's just how my brain builds up the layers. But yeah, honestly, painting with markers is like coloring in a coloring book. That's what makes it so fun, especially the big blocky areas. I just love just coloring them in. So at this point I was enjoying this painting for that sole reason, even though it's got me so much stress at this point, and it was so late. It was like 1 a.m. when I was filming this. Yeah, I was very concerned that the lighting was going to turn out horrible, but I had about 3 lamps up in my room to try and minimize the shadows as much as possible. But yeah, it was actually really fun to just pretend like I'm coloring in a coloring book. With the water here, it does look like I know what I'm doing, but honestly I was fluking it as well. I was putting down so many random colours just because I don't think it's that important for something like the water, because there's so many different layers to it anyways. Your eye is not going to draw attention to each individual component, so I think it's completely fine. Just draw it randomly and it'll look fine. Now this part was super satisfying because again I was just blocking out the colours with one shade. And then I'll go in to do the details of the bridge a little bit later, but yeah. And I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but even when I was blocking out this shadow, I'm actually mixing 2 colours. So they have this dark green, but it's quite cool toned, and I was just looking for something a little bit warmer, which they didn't have, so I had to combine it with this dark brown shade. And then I'm using these transition colours to try and blend it into the lighter blue that you can see in the middle. So yeah, that's just what was going on there. Now this felt super criminal, but again I'm doing the same thing. The brown was just not deep enough to really make any difference here, so I had to combine it with a little bit of the black. So when I started doing the highlights, I was noticing that the colours were coming out quite bright on top of the really dark backgrounds, but once they dry, they do turn quite translucent again, so you do have to go over it a couple of times to get the really bright highlights. Right, so I'm not gonna lie, I got really stuck over here. I did not know how to draw the details of this bridge, and so I just covered it up by drawing a bush. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do in a lot of cases. Like I did before with the cherry blossom tree, we're doing the same thing here, but this time with a lovely green bush. Okay, so now here we go to my least favorite and most stress-inducing part, which is painting the dress. And I don't know why that is. I think it's because there's so many different reflections in a dress because of the shadows and the highlights in the fabric. It's just really difficult to portray for me. And this dress is meant to be white, but I'm going in with a lot of different colors, especially blues and pinks, because that will really bring out the shadows. And normally I actually paint the character first, but because this time I was trialing out the markers, I wanted to go in with the background just to see what the markers were like. But normally, yeah, I would do the dress first because I like to get the hardest part out of the way, and if it doesn't work out, you can always start again, which obviously I couldn't in this case, and I was panicking. But once I got to the highlights of the dress, it really started coming together, I think. Again, I was completely trialing it out with the hair. I wanted it to look like braids, which I hope it does, but yeah, I don't think that's very obvious, to be honest. Now, going in with these flowers, I know it looks like the colors are not coming out that vibrantly, but that's actually what I was going for, because I think it gives it a softer look, and we don't really want to focus too much on these flowers. They are in the foreground, but because the light source is in the background, the flowers are not going to be that illuminated in the light. I'm not sure if that's the best way of explaining it, but I was quite happy with the softer look. Okay, so wrapping it up, I actually really enjoyed working with these markers, so thank you Arrtx for sending me them. This video is not sponsored, but I'm really thankful. I did receive these as a gift and I had a really good time, and I think I would definitely try acrylic markers again. I really liked the color range. I think that there's quite a few colors to work with, and if you are struggling to find the right color, you can easily mix them because they're kind of translucent, which for me, I quite like that, but it depends on what you're using these markers for, and if it's for more blocking out colors, then that might not be for you because you might want something that's a little bit more opaque. But overall, I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys did too. And yeah, just thank you so much for all the support that you've shown me.